I've been a single dad for about 2 years now. My son Leo is 3, and anyone with a toddler knows that sleep is a currency you rarely have enough of. We live in a 2-story colonial in a suburb that's usually quiet enough to hear a pin drop after 9 p.m. It's just us. And honestly, for a long time, that silence was peaceful. It felt like a sanctuary. But looking back now, I realize how vulnerable we really were. It started on a Tuesday. I remember the day because I had just gotten over a bad flu and I was in that fog where you're not sick anymore, but you're just exhausted. I put Leo down around 7:30. He was out like a light. I went downstairs, collapsed on the couch, and turned on the baby monitor. It's one of those video ones that connects to an app on my phone, but I also have a dedicated little screen that sits on the coffee table. Around 10 p.m., I was dozing off to some 2.5 men when the monitor lit up. It does that when it detects sound. I looked over, expecting to see Leo tossing or turning, but the room was still. The night vision makes everything look green and grainy, like found footage from a movie. Leo was just a lump under the blankets. Then I heard it. It was a voice with a rhythmic, low, humming sound. I sat up, muting the TV. I turned the volume on the monitor all the way up. The humming stopped. I waited for a solid minute, heart rate picking up a little, but then I heard Leo let out a little sigh and roll over. I told myself I was hearing things. Maybe it was the house settling, or maybe the monitor picked up a radio frequency. You hear about that sometimes, right? Truckers' CB radios bleeding into baby monitors. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, I was in the kitchen getting water. The monitor was on the counter. The sound cut through the silence of the kitchen like a knife. But this wasn't humming. It was a whisper. Sleep tight. My blood ran cold. It was distinct. It sounded masculine, raspy, like someone with a dry throat. I dropped the glass of water in the sink. It didn't break, thankfully. And I sprinted up the stairs. I didn't even care about waking Leo up. I burst into his room, flipped on the light, and scanned every corner. Leo sat up, rubbing his eyes, screaming and crying because I'd just blinded him with the overhead light. The room was empty. The window was locked. The closet door was shut. I checked under the bed. Nothing. I spent the next hour calming him down, feeling like a complete lunatic. I eventually convinced myself that the monitor had been hacked. I'd read articles about people hacking into Wi-Fi cameras just to mess with people. It was terrifying, sure, but it was digital. It wasn't physical. That was the lie I told myself so I could sleep. The next day, I unplugged the Wi-Fi camera and went out and bought an old-school audio-only monitor. No internet, no hacking, just radio waves. I figured that would solve the problem. For a week, it was quiet. I started to relax. I figured the hacker had moved on to someone else. Then came Saturday. It was storming bad, thunder shaking the house. Leo was restless. I was in my bedroom reading when I heard the static on the audio monitor crackle. "Daddy's coming." It was the same voice, raspy, deeply, unnervingly close to the microphone. I froze. This wasn't a Wi-Fi hack. This was a radio monitor. You have to be within a certain range to pick up the frequency, or you have to be speaking directly into the transmitter unit. The transmitter unit that was sitting on the dresser inside my son's room. All the fear in me got turned into pure adrenaline when I realized that my son was in danger. I grabbed the baseball bat I keep under the bed and moved into the hallway. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The house was pitch black except for the lightning flashes. I got to Leo's door. It was closed. I listened. I heard a soft, melodic sound. Someone was singing. It was a lullaby, but the words were all wrong. It was gibberish, mumbled and low. I kicked the door open and flipped the switch. Leo was asleep. The room was empty. The window was still locked. The closet was still shut. But the transmitter, the little white box with the microphone that I had placed on the dresser, was gone. I tore the room apart. I woke Leo up again, who was hysterical. I checked everywhere. I couldn't find the monitor. I ushered Leo into my room, locked the door, and called the police. They came, did a sweep of the house and the perimeter. They found nothing, no signs of forced entry. They told me the monitor probably just fell behind the dresser and I missed it in my panic. They looked at me with that look, the exhausted, paranoid, single-parent look. I felt crazy. I really did. I sent Leo to stay with his grandmother the next night because I didn't feel safe, but I stayed behind. I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I set up a hunting trail camera, one I used for deer season, on top of my bookshelf in the nursery. It's motion activated and records to an SD card. It doesn't emit light or sound. I spent the night in the guest room, clutching the bat. But the night was silent. No voices, no movement. The next morning, I took the SD card out and put it into my laptop. I wasn't expecting to see anything. I was praying I wouldn't see anything. The first few clips were just me walking in and out, setting it up. Then, hours of nothing. Then, a clip stamped at 3:14 a.m. The video is black and white night vision. The room is empty. But then, slowly, the closet door, the one I checked a dozen times, begins to slide open. It doesn't creak. It just glides. A man crawls out. He isn't wearing shoes. He's incredibly thin, wearing dirty, baggy clothes. He moves on all fours, silent as a spider. He crawls over to where the crib used to be. I had moved Leo and the crib to my room, thankfully. He looks confused. He stands up and he's tall. He looks right at the spot where the baby monitor used to sit. Then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the white transmitter unit. He holds it up to his mouth, smiles, a wide, toothy, horrible smile, and whispers something I can't hear because the trail cam has no audio. Then he turns and looks directly at the bookshelf, at the camera. His smile drops. He realizes he's being recorded. He walks calmly back to the closet, slides inside, and shuts the door. I called the police immediately. This time I showed them the footage. They drew their guns and went upstairs. They opened the closet. It looked normal, just baby clothes and boxes. But one officer noticed the carpet inside the closet was loose. He pulled it up. There was a hole cut into the floorboards, leading down into the crawl space between the first and second floors. They found a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers from my pantry, and a collection of batteries. They also found the baby monitor transmitter. He had been living in the crawl space for weeks, maybe months. He had been coming up into my son's room every night. The police never found him. The crawl space had an exit vent that led to the backyard, and the grate had been unscrewed. He was gone before they arrived. I moved out the next day. I couldn't walk into that room again. I still have nightmares about the voice. But the worst part, the part that makes me physically sick when I think about it, is a detail I noticed when I rewatched the footage. In the video, when he crawled out of the closet, he was holding a stuffed bear. It was Leo's favorite bear, the one that Leo sleeps with every single night, which means at some point, while my son was sleeping in my bed that night, that man had come into my bedroom, taken the bear from my son's arms, and gone back to the nursery to perform for the camera. He had been in the room with both of us, and I never heard a thing. This incident will always stick with me, and now I make sure wherever I am living, it is completely empty. I work, or used to work, security for a corporate high-rise in downtown Chicago. It's one of those jobs that sounds easy on paper. You sit at a desk in the lobby, watch a wall of monitors, do a round every hour, and drink coffee. It's 99% boredom and 1% dealing with a drunk person trying to pee on the revolving doors. The building is 40 stories tall, mostly law firms and tech startups. At night, it is completely dead. The only sound is the hum of the HVAC and the occasional siren passing by outside. This happened last November. It was around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was 3 hours into my shift, fighting to keep my eyes open. I was staring at the monitor wall, just zoning out. We have cameras everywhere, lobby, elevators, stairwells, every hallway. I was watching the feed for elevator bank B. We have 4 elevators in that bank. On the screen, the doors to car 3 were open. Standing in the back corner of the elevator was a person. I sat up straight, spilling a bit of coffee on my hand. It was weird for 2 reasons. 1, nobody had signed in. The building is locked down tight after 8 p.m. You need a key card to even get into the lobby. 2, the person wasn't moving. They were wearing a dark gray hoodie with the hood up, face in shadow, hands in their pockets, just facing the doors. I grabbed the radio.
Control 2. Anyone in the building? Is there anyone working late on 4 or 5?
Silence. I watched the screen. The elevator doors stayed open. The guy didn't move. He looked like a statue. I sighed, grabbed my heavy maglite flashlight, and walked over to the elevator banks. The lobby is huge, marble floors that echo every step you take. I walked around the corner to Bank B. The doors to car 3 were closed. I looked at the floor indicator above the elevator. It said L for lobby. The car was right here. I pressed the call button. The bell dinged, and the doors slid open. Empty. I stepped inside, looked around. Nothing. No hoodie guy. I checked the ceiling hatch. Locked. I stepped back out and let the doors close. I figured maybe the camera feed was glitching, showing me a frozen image from earlier in the day. It happens. Old systems, cheap tech. I walked back to the security desk and sat down. I looked at the monitor. The guy was still there. Same posture, same gray hoodie, same corner. I tapped the screen. Piece of junk, I muttered. I started typing on the keyboard to reboot the camera software. I figured a reset would clear the image. The screen went black for a second, then popped back up with the live feed. He was still there, but he had moved. He was now standing right in front of the elevator doors, his face pressed almost against the camera lens, which is mounted in the top corner of the cab. I recoiled, my chair rolling back. I couldn't see his face, just the dark hollow of the hood and a bit of pale chin. The elevator was empty when I checked it 30 seconds ago, and he was in it now. How is that possible? I grabbed the lobby phone and called the police non-emergency line. I know, it sounds wimpy, but the hair on the back of my arms was standing up. While I was on hold, I watched the screen. The elevator doors on the screen opened. The figure stepped out. He walked into the lobby hallway, the same hallway I had just walked down. I dropped the phone. I spun around in my chair, looking toward the hallway. It was empty. I could see all the way down to the elevator banks. There was no one there. I looked back at the screen. The figure was walking down the hallway on the monitor, heading toward the security desk. I was losing my mind. I was looking at the monitor, seeing him walk, and then looking up at the real world, seeing nothing. It was like watching a ghost. Then, on the screen, the figure stopped. He was standing right in front of the reception desk. On the monitor, he was standing right in front of me. I looked up. Empty air. I looked back at the screen. The figure slowly raised a hand and pointed. Not at me. He pointed at the timestamp in the corner of the screen. I squinted. The time on the camera feed read 2:50. I looked at my phone. The real time was 3. The feed wasn't live. It was delayed. Somehow the system had lagged by 10 minutes. I wasn't watching what was happening now. I was watching what had happened 10 minutes ago. The realization hit me like a physical punch to the gut. 10 minutes ago, I was in the bathroom. I had left the desk for maybe 5 minutes. That means this guy had walked out of the elevator, walked up to the desk, and stood there while I was in the restroom. On the screen, the figure in the hoodie leaned over the desk. He looked at my logbook. Then he turned and looked directly at the bathroom door, which is visible in the background of the shot. He started walking toward the bathroom. Then the video feed glitch jumped. It sped up, trying to catch up to real time. The figure on the screen moved in fast forward, jerking toward the bathroom door, then disappearing inside. The feed synced. The timestamp matched my phone. The lobby on the screen was empty, because he wasn't in the lobby anymore. He was in the bathroom, or he had been. I heard a noise behind me, a soft, wet squeak of a sneaker on marble. I spun around. Standing by the emergency exit stairwell, which is right behind the security desk, was the figure. Gray hoodie, hands in pockets. He was staring right at me. He wasn't a ghost. He was a guy. A real solid guy. He smiled, and it was the creepiest, most vacuous smile I've ever seen. He raised a finger to his lips. Shh. Then he turned and bolted into the stairwell. I didn't chase him. I locked myself in the security booth and called 911, frantic. By the time the cops swept the building, he was gone. They found a sleeping bag and some tools stashed on the 40th floor in an unfinished office suite. He'd been living up there, using the elevators at night when he thought no one was watching. The scariest part wasn't the delay. It was realizing that while I was investigating the empty elevator thinking I was alone, he was probably watching me from the stairwell the entire time, just waiting to see if I'd figure it out. I quit the next day. I work day shifts now, only in crowded places. I don't know if I will experience anything like that ever again. I really hope I don't. If you enjoyed this story, if it creeped you out even a little, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you think. You can check out other stories about haunted places, real encounters, and Home Alone horrors with the links here.